The auxiliary spaceship Vorathan drifted helplessly through the cold void of space. Its once glowing blue engines flickered weakly, struggling to stay online. Inside, red emergency lights cast long shadows across the metallic corridors. Alarm sirens blared, and the sharp smell of burning circuits filled the air. The crew, a group of highly trained auxiliary officers, moved quickly, their smooth, dark purple skin glistening with sweat as they worked to stabilize the ship. Captain Xanavash gripped the edge of her command console, her forefingers tightening as she studied the damage report. It was worse than she had feared. Power at 20%. Shields are gone. Weapons are offline, her tactical officer, Voralfak, reported. His deep voice was calm, but she could see the tension in his eyes. "Can we jump to hyperspace?" Sena asked, knowing the answer but hoping for a miracle. "Our drive core is damaged. If we attempt to jump, the ship might tear apart," Voralfak replied grimly. Xena exhaled slowly. They were stranded. And worse, they were not alone. Outside, several dark, jagged ships hovered in the distance, their crimson lights blinking like hungry predators watching their wounded prey. These ships belonged to an unknown species, but their intentions were clear. They had ambushed the Vorathan, fired upon it without warning, and now they were waiting, perhaps enjoying the fear of their victims. "They are toying with us," said Lieutenant Surik, the ship's communication officer, like a predator playing with its meal before the kill. Xena felt anger rise in her chest. The Xilari were explorers, not warriors, but they were not cowards either. If this was their end, they would meet it with dignity. Still, she was not ready to surrender to fate just yet. "Activate the distress beacon," she ordered. "Send a general emergency broadcast on all frequencies." Voralfak hesitated. "Captain, our allies are too far away. No one will reach us in time." Xena nodded. "I know, but maybe, just maybe, someone is out there. Someone who can help." A signal across the stars. Far away, like years from the battle, the distress signal raced across the vast emptiness of space. It traveled past asteroid fields, across the orbits of distant planets, through the quiet void where no life existed. And then it reached Earth. On a massive space station orbiting Earth, the United Earth Defense Fleet's Central Command detected the signal. A red warning light flashed on a console, and an officer quickly scanned the transmission. "Sir, we have a distress call," the officer said, turning to his superior. "Unknown species. Their ship is under attack." Admiral Jonas Rourke, a grizzled veteran of space warfare, studied the message on his screen. His eyes narrowed. "Can we confirm their location?" "Yes, sir, but they are deep in uncharted space, far from any of our fleets. Even at maximum speed, our nearest warships won't get there in time." Rourke exhaled sharply. "So they're as good as dead," he muttered. The officer hesitated. "Sir, there might be one option." Rourke turned his head. "Go on." The officer tapped on his screen, bringing up the profile of a single pilot, Commander Jack Carter. "He's currently stationed on Luna Base, testing the Thunderstrike. It's the fastest single-seat fighter we have. If anyone can get there in time, it's him." Rourke let out a low chuckle. "Carter, that hotshot. He's crazy enough to try it." Then, after a moment of thought, the Admiral nodded. "Patch me through to him. Let's see if he's up for a little hero work today." Earth's best pilot. On Luna Base, Earth's military outpost on the moon, Commander Jack Carter leaned back in his chair, feet propped up on his control panel. He was sipping a cold energy drink, enjoying a rare moment of peace. Then his communicator beeped. Carter sighed. Yeah. What now?" he muttered as he answered. Admiral Rourke's voice came through, rough and serious. "Carter, we've got a situation. A distress call from deep space. Unknown aliens under attack. We're too far to send backup, except for you." Carter raised an eyebrow. "You want me to fly solo into a battle zone, against an unknown enemy?" That's right, Work confirmed. We don't know what you'll be facing, and I won't lie. It's a suicide mission if you mess up. Carter grinned. Well, that just makes it interesting. He stood up, stretching his arms. All right, patch the coordinates to my system. I'll take the Thunderstrike out for a spin. Rourke's voice turned serious. Jack, listen. These aliens aren't part of our alliance. We don't know if they'll even trust you. But if they die out there, we might never know who attacked them. And if this enemy turns their attention toward us, I want to be ready. Carter's grin faded slightly. He understood. This wasn't just about rescuing strangers. This could be the first move in something much bigger. Got it, sir, he said. I won't let them down. As the call ended, Carter grabbed his flight helmet and ran toward the launch bay. In moments, the Thunderstrike, Earth's most advanced and dangerous starfighter, roared to life. Carter's engines burned bright as he shot out into the vastness of space toward an unknown enemy and a crew that had no idea help was on the way, and humanity's best pilot was coming for them. The Thunderstrike shot through space like a silver arrow, its engines glowing bright against the darkness. Inside the cockpit, Commander Jack Carter kept his hands steady on the controls, his eyes locked on the holographic display in front of him. The auxiliary distress beacon pulsed like a heartbeat, guiding him toward the unknown. All right, let's see what kind of mess I'm flying into, Carter muttered to himself. The Thunderstrike was Earth's most advanced starfighter, faster, deadlier, and more maneuverable than anything in the fleet. It was built for deep space combat, designed to give a single pilot the power of an entire squadron. And Carter, he was the best pilot Earth had ever trained. As the ship approached the auxiliary's last known coordinates, the first warning came. Multiple unidentified ships detected. Carter's display lit up with red markers, enemy ships, circling their wounded prey like hungry sharks. His jaw tightened. I guess diplomacy's off the table, he muttered, pushing the throttle forward. A deadly battlefield. The auxiliary ship, Vorathan, was barely holding together. Carter could see its hull glowing from heat damage, large sections torn open by enemy fire. Debris floated in space around it, pieces of the ship that had been ripped apart. And then, there were the attackers. Dark, jagged ships, with sleek and deadly designs, moved in slow, confident patterns around the auxiliary vessel. Their weapons pulsed with energy, but they weren't firing. Not yet. They were waiting, enjoying the suffering of their prey. Carter's hands tightened on the controls. He had seen this kind of behavior before, a predator taking its time, playing with its food. It made his blood boil. He activated his comms. Auxiliary vessel, this is Commander Jack Carter of the United Earth Defense Fleet. Do you copy? For a moment, there was silence. Then, a crackling voice responded. This is Captain Xenavash of the Vorathan. A female voice said, weak but firm. Who are you? Your rescue, Carter replied. Sit tight, Captain. I'll handle this. Xena's voice was sharp with disbelief. You are alone. Carter smirked. Trust me, that's all I need. First strike. The enemy ships finally noticed Carter. Several of them broke formation and turned toward the Thunderstrike, scanning it as if trying to decide whether it was a threat. Carter didn't wait for them to make up their minds. He flipped a switch, and the Thunderstrike's twin plasma cannons roared to life. His first shot tore through the closest enemy fighter, splitting it in half before it even had time to react. The explosion sent debris spinning into space. That got their attention. The enemy fleet turned as one, suddenly realizing that their easy hunt had just become a real fight. Come on, then, Carter muttered, gripping the controls. Let's see what you've got. The battle erupted. The human advantage. The enemy ships were fast, but Carter was faster. He rolled the Thunderstrike between incoming laser blasts, weaving through enemy fire with inhuman reflexes. Every time an enemy locked onto him, he was already gone, darting between wreckage and twisting through impossible angles. Earth's technology had one major advantage over most alien ships: maneuverability. Other species built their ships for power, but humans understood that speed and adaptability won battles. Carter looped around behind an enemy fighter and fired. The blast struck dead center, sending the ship spiraling into a fireball. Another fighter tried to flank him. He cut his engines, let it overshoot, and blasted it from behind. Inside the Vorthen, Captain Scifi and her crew watched in shock. "He is unbelievable," whispered Vorelfak, their tactical officer. "One ship," Sena murmured. "Just one. And he's holding them off." Turning the tide. The enemy fighters hesitated, their formation breaking apart. They had expected an easy hunt, not a single warrior ripping through their ranks like a storm. Carter saw his chance. "Vorthen, listen up," he said, dodging another blast. "I need you to fire up your engines. You don't have to fight, just get ready to run." Xena hesitated. "But—" "No time for debate, Captain," Carter snapped. "Trust me." A moment of silence. Then, "Understood." The Vorthen's engines flickered as the crew scrambled to restart them. Meanwhile, Carter pushed the Thunderstrike into overdrive, boosting straight into the heart of the enemy fleet. He fired wildly, aggressively, forcing them to turn their attention toward him. He was alone, outnumbered, outgunned. And yet, he was winning. The retreat. The enemy ships, once so confident, now scattered. They fired desperately, but Carter was always a step ahead. They had never fought anything like him before. Then, suddenly, they turned and ran. The surviving enemy ships jumped to hyperspace, vanishing in an instant. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, "Vorthen, how are we looking?" Carter asked, breathing hard. "Our engines are online," Xena said, amazement in her voice. "We are functional." Carter leaned back in his seat, grinning. "Good. Then let's get you home." Inside the Vorthen, the auxiliary crew stared at their monitors in disbelief. One ship, one human, and he had defeated an entire enemy force. The auxiliary ship, Vorthen, drifted in space, battered but still intact. Inside, Captain Scifi and her crew stared at their monitors, trying to understand what had just happened. Moments ago, they had been on the verge of death, surrounded by an unknown enemy, their fate sealed. Then, a single human pilot arrived, and he had won. A lone warrior. Commander Jack Carter adjusted his flight controls, guiding the Thunderstrike toward the damaged auxiliary vessel. His heart was still racing from the battle, but he kept his focus sharp. The enemy had retreated, but that didn't mean they wouldn't return. He activated his comms. "Vorthen, this is Carter. Your ship's looking rough. I'm coming in for a closer look." Captain Cena's voice crackled through the speakers. "Your skills are remarkable," she said, still struggling to believe what she had seen. "Are all humans like you?" Carter smirked. "Not all. Just the good ones." He scanned the Vorthen's hull. "You've got hull breaches, fried systems, and no shields. You won't make it far like this. You need repairs." Xena hesitated. Accepting help from a human was a risk. Her people barely knew anything about Earth. But Carter had saved them. And right now, he was their only hope. "Very well," she said. "You may dock." Carter grinned. Smart choice. He aligned the Thunderstrike with the auxiliary docking bay and carefully maneuvered his fighter inside. As the hangar doors sealed behind him, he powered down his engines and took a deep breath. Time to make a first impression, face to face. The hangar was dimly lit, the emergency lights casting a faint blue glow over the damaged interior. Several auxiliary crew members stood at a distance, watching the human with wary eyes. Carter stepped out of his cockpit, removing his helmet. His dark flight suit was streaked with sweat, and his short brown hair was slightly messy from the high-speed maneuvers. For a moment, there was silence. Then, Captain Scifi stepped forward. She was taller than Carter, with smooth purple skin, deep golden eyes, and a posture that radiated authority. Even wounded, she carried herself like a leader. "You are different than I expected," she said, studying him carefully. Carter grinned. "What were you expecting, some kind of monster?" Xena didn't answer. Truthfully, she didn't know what she had expected. The Xilari had always assumed humans were a minor species, primitive, untested. But this man had just destroyed an entire enemy force alone. She extended a hand, Xilari style, palm up. "I am Captain Scifi. You have our gratitude, Commander Carter." Carter clasped her forearm in return. "Glad to hear it. Now, let's get your ship patched up before those guys decide to come back." A battle of minds. In the Vorthan's command center, Carter examined the damage reports. The ship was in worse shape than he thought. "Engines are barely holding together," he said, rubbing his chin. "Your weapons are dead, and your life support is running on backup power. If those guys come back, you won't last long." Vorolfak, the tactical officer, folded his arms. "Then what do you suggest, human?" Carter leaned forward, grinning. "Simple. We fix what we can, and we prepare for round 2. Sirik, the communication officer, frowned. "You think they will return?" "They always do," Carter said. "They ran because they didn't expect a fight. Now they know we're dangerous, and that means they'll be back, with bigger guns." Xena nodded slowly. "Then we must be ready." Carter cracked his knuckles. "Good. Let's get to work. The human way." The auxiliary engineers hesitated when Carter started making adjustments to their systems. "You want to reroute power from the navigation grid to the weapons?" one of them asked. "Yup," Carter said, typing commands into the console. "It'll give you just enough firepower to fight back." "But that is not how our ships are designed," the engineer protested. Carter smirked. "Yeah, well, humans don't always follow the design." Xena watched as Carter worked. His methods were fast, efficient, and reckless. The auxiliary followed strict protocols, but humans improvised. And somehow, it was working. In just an hour, Carter had reactivated partial weapon systems, strengthened the shields, and improved engine output by 15%. Xena exchanged a glance with Vorolfak. "Perhaps we have underestimated them," she said softly. "The enemy returns." Just as Carter finished boosting the weapons, an alarm blared through the ship. "Incoming vessels," Sirik shouted. "Multiple enemy ships approaching fast." Carter's eyes narrowed. "Told you they'd be back." Xena turned to her crew. Battle stations. The auxiliary scrambled into action. This time, they weren't helpless. This time, they had a fighter on their side. Carter ran back toward the hangar. "I'll take the Thunderstrike and keep them busy outside." Xena hesitated, then called after him. "Commander Carter." He stopped, turning to face her. "You are unlike any warrior I have ever met," she said. Carter grinned. "And I'm just getting started." He jumped into his fighter, powered up the engines, and shot out of the hangar just as the enemy ships arrived. The real battle was about to begin. The Thunderstrike blasted out of the auxiliary hangar, its engines roaring as it shot into open space. Jack Carter's eyes narrowed, locking onto the incoming enemy fleet. 12 ships, bigger, stronger, and more heavily armed than the ones he had fought before. "Guess they brought their big brothers," Carter muttered. Behind him, the Vorthan floated, still damaged but no longer defenseless. Thanks to Carter's modifications, the auxiliary ship had weapons, shields, and a fighting chance. Now, it was time to use them. The enemy strikes first. The enemy ships spread out, moving in a coordinated attack pattern. These weren't just scavengers. This was an organized force, and they were coming to finish what they started. "Vorthan, this is Carter," he called over the comms. "Stay close and keep your new guns ready." Xena's voice responded, firm but tense. "Understood." We will fight. The first shots fired. Enemy lasers streaked through space, aimed straight at the thunderstrike. Carter jerked his controls, dodging with precise, lightning-fast movements. His ship twisted and rolled between enemy fire, the plasma blasts missing by inches. "Too slow, boys," Carter muttered with a grin. He flipped a switch, and the thunderstrike's cannons roared. Bright blue plasma bolts tore through the darkness, striking an enemy fighter dead center. The ship exploded in a brilliant fireball, sending debris spinning into space. 1 down, 11 to go. Fighting as one. On the Vorathan, Sena watched Carter move. His ship danced through the battlefield, taking out enemies with impossible speed. "He is a force of nature," whispered Sirik, their communications officer. Voralthak, the tactical officer, clenched his fists. "We cannot let him fight alone." Xena nodded. "Ready weapons. Aim for their flanks." The Xilari gunners hesitated. They had never fought like this before. But then they remembered. Carter had given them a chance. They had to use it. "Fire," Xena commanded. The Vorathan's cannons roared to life. The ship trembled as its weapons, newly reactivated, spat plasma fire into the enemy fleet. A direct hit. One enemy ship's shields collapsed, and seconds later, Carter swooped in and finished it off with a precise blast. The Xilari crew stared in amazement. For the first time, they were fighting back. The human mindset. Carter noticed the change immediately. The Xilari were finally acting like warriors, not just survivors. "Nice shooting, Vorathan," he called. "Let's keep up the pressure." Xena's voice came through. "Your tactics, your way of fighting. It is different from ours." "Yeah," Carter said, dodging an enemy attack. "Humans don't just accept defeat. We hit back." And hit back they did. The Xilari crew, inspired by Carter's relentless offense, kept firing, landing more and more shots on the enemy fleet. The tide of battle was turning. But then, a new threat appeared. The battleship arrives. A massive shadow loomed over the battlefield. A warship, 10 times the size of the Thunderstrike, emerged from hyperspace. The Xilari crew froze. "That is a dreadnought," Voralthak whispered. "We cannot win against that." The ship's weapons powered up, glowing with deadly energy. It was built for destruction. Carter let out a slow breath. This was bad. "Vorathan," he said, "stay behind me. I'll handle this." Xena's voice snapped through the comms. "Are you insane? That ship is big, slow, and full of weak spots," Carter finished. "I fought worse." He had to think fast. The Thunderstrike didn't have the firepower to take down something that massive. But he didn't need firepower. He needed strategy. The plan. Carter's mind raced. The dreadnought was powerful, but it had one weakness: it was too slow. If he could distract it, make it focus on him, the Vorathan could escape. "All right, big guy," Carter muttered. "Let's dance." He pushed his engines to max, speeding toward the dreadnought at full throttle. The enemy captain took the bait. The dreadnought's cannons locked onto him and fired. But Carter was already gone. The Thunderstrike spun and twisted, dodging blasts by inches, moving too fast for the massive warship to track. Inside the dreadnought, the enemy officers struggled to keep up. "Target moving too fast," one of them shouted. "Impossible. No ship is that agile." Carter grinned. They had never faced a human pilot before. The final blow. As Carter kept the dreadnought busy, the Xilari crew saw their chance. Xena's eyes burned with determination. "Target their engines. Fire everything we have." The Vorathan unleashed a full-powered barrage. Plasma bolts slammed into the dreadnought's rear thrusters, piercing its weakened defenses. Carter saw his opening. Time to end this. He flipped a switch, arming his last missile. He dived toward the dreadnought's exposed engine core, locked on, and fired. The missile struck home. A chain reaction erupted inside the dreadnought. tearing through its core systems. Explosions ripped across its hull. Inside the enemy warship, alarms blared. Critical damage detected. The enemy captain's face twisted in shock. One pilot destroyed us. Boom. The dreadnought detonated, a massive fireball lighting up the void. The remaining enemy fighters saw their leader fall, and they fled. The battle was over. Victory. As the debris settled, Carter let out a breath. That was fun. Xana's voice came through, shaken but victorious. You did it. Carter smirked. Told you. Humans hit back. On the Vorthen, the auxiliary crew stood in silence, staring at their monitors. One human, one pilot had saved them all. Xana took a deep breath. Earth is far more powerful than we imagined. Carter grinned. And now, you've got a human on your side. The legend of Jack Carter had begun. The battlefield was now quiet. Floating debris from the destroyed dreadnought and enemy fighters drifted in space, glowing faintly from scattered fires. The auxiliary ship, Vorthen, remained standing, damaged but victorious. Inside his fighter, Jack Carter exhaled deeply. His heart was still racing, but a victorious grin spread across his face. Another day, another impossible battle won. He switched on his comms. Vorthen, this is Carter. Your ship's still in one piece. I'd call that a good day. Captain Xanavash's voice responded, filled with something Carter hadn't heard before. Respect. You did the impossible, she said. Alone, against a dreadnought. You are extraordinary. Carter chuckled. Tell that to my boss back on Earth. He keeps saying I have an attitude problem. A rare laugh escaped Xana. Perhaps, but your attitude saved us today. Inside the Vorthen, the auxiliary crew whispered among themselves, glancing at the screens showing Carter's fighter. A single human had just changed everything. A hero's arrival. As Carter guided the Thunderstrike back into the Vorthen's hangar, a crowd of auxiliary crew members gathered near the landing pad. Whispers filled the air. That small craft took down a dreadnought. How can one warrior be so powerful? Maybe the stories about humans are wrong. Maybe they are stronger than we thought. Carter powered down his fighter and climbed out, stretching his arms. As he stepped onto the deck, all eyes were on him. He was an alien among aliens, and yet he had saved them. Captain Xana approached him, flanked by her officers. This time, there was no hesitation, no doubt in her eyes. She extended her hand. Commander Carter, welcome aboard. Carter smirked and shook her hand. Glad to be here. For the first time in history, a human had earned the respect of an entire alien crew. The aftermath. The Vorthen's repair crews immediately got to work, sealing hull breaches, stabilizing energy systems, and recharging the weapons. Though the ship had survived, the damage was severe. Inside the strategy room, Carter studied the holographic map with Xana and her officers. The battle was over, but they weren't safe yet. The enemy retreated, Carter said, but they'll be back. Stronger. Angrier. Xana nodded. Agreed. We must leave this sector before reinforcements arrive. Voralthak, the tactical officer, folded his arms. We cannot jump to hyperspace in this condition. We need at least 12 hours for the engines to stabilize. Carter leaned back, thinking. All right, that means we need a defensive plan, just in case we get unwanted visitors. Sirik, the communication officer, looked uneasy. You mean, fight again? Carter gave him a lopsided grin. I mean, be ready. You guys aren't running anymore. You've got weapons now. Use them. The auxiliary officers exchanged glances. Carter's confidence was unshakable, and it was starting to affect them too. Xana placed her hands on the table. Then we prepare. We will not be defenseless again. For the first time, the auxiliary weren't just survivors. They were warriors, understanding humanity. Later, as the repairs continued, Carter sat in the Vorthen's mess hall, finally getting a moment to breathe. The food wasn't exactly human-friendly, mostly glowing blue liquids and strange purple meat, but he was too hungry to care. Xena sat across from him, watching him curiously. "You fight unlike any species we have seen," she said. "You take risks. You act without fear." Carter swallowed a bite and grinned. "Oh, I feel fear. I just don't let it stop me." Xena tilted her head. "And that is what makes humans different." Carter leaned forward. "It's more than that. Humans don't just fight to survive. We fight to win. If we see a challenge, we push through it. If we fall, we get back up. And if someone picks a fight with us," he smirked, "well, they learn pretty fast why that's a bad idea." Xena studied him, a new realization settling in. Humanity wasn't just another species. They were something else entirely. Something dangerous. Something powerful. And now they had an ally among the stars. The warning. Just as Carter was about to enjoy another bite, the ship's alarm blared through the halls. Sirik's voice echoed over the speakers. "Captain, we are receiving a transmission." Xena and Carter rushed to the bridge. The holographic screen flickered, revealing an enemy commander, tall, armored, and furious. "You should not have interfered, human," the alien growled. "This is not your war." Carter folded his arms. "It is now." The alien's red eyes burned with rage. "You have made a powerful enemy. We are coming for you. And for your planet." The transmission cut off. Silence filled the bridge. Xena's hands tightened into fists. They now see Earth as a threat. Carter exhaled slowly. He had just started an intergalactic war, and he wouldn't have it any other way. The Vorthan's bridge was silent. The enemy's warning still echoed in everyone's minds. "You have made a powerful enemy. We are coming for you, and for your planet." Jack Carter crossed his arms, his expression unreadable. The weight of the moment pressed on him. Earth was now a target. Xenavash clenched her fists. "They will not stop until they destroy us." Carter exhaled. "Then we don't give them the chance." The auxiliary officers exchanged uneasy glances. They had spent years running, hiding, barely surviving. Now, standing and fighting seemed impossible. But Carter wasn't auxiliary. He was human. And humans never back down. The plan. Carter turned to the tactical officer, Voralfak. "How long until the ship is fully operational?" Voralfak hesitated. 6 more hours. Our engines will be stable, and our shields will be at 60%. "That's not enough," Carter said. "If they come back before we're ready, we're finished." Xena studied him. "Then what do you suggest?" Carter tapped the table. "We turn the battlefield to our advantage. This ship has stealth capabilities, right?" Voralfak nodded. "Limited, but yes. Then we use it. We make them think we're weaker than we are. Lure them into a trap." Xena raised an eyebrow. "You want us to bait them?" Carter grinned. "They think we're prey. Let's prove them wrong." Preparing for war. The auxiliary crew, once hesitant, now moved with purpose. Carter's confidence was infectious. The repair teams worked faster. Engineers rerouted power to the shields. Weapons officers fine-tuned the plasma cannons. For the first time, the auxiliary weren't just fixing their ship. They were preparing for war. Carter supervised the process, helping where he could. His presence alone pushed them to work harder. As he tightened a loose panel, Xena approached. "I have never seen my people this motivated before." Carter wiped his hands. "Because they finally have something worth fighting for." Xena nodded. "And you? Why do you fight?" Carter smirked. "Because that's what humans do." She studied him for a moment. "Then I hope your people are ready. Because this war has only just begun." Enemy at the gates. The wait was agonizing. Every second felt like an hour. The Vorathan remained in low-power mode, its presence hidden among the debris field from the last battle. Then, incoming vessels. Cyric shouted. On the holographic screen, 5 enemy ships emerged from hyperspace, smaller than the dreadnought, but still deadly. They had come to finish the job. Carter cracked his knuckles. Right on time. Xena turned to her crew. Hold position. Let them believe we are weak. The enemy ships scanned the area, searching for survivors. The wreckage from their fallen dreadnought floated in the void, making it seem as though the battle had already been won. Then the lead enemy ship sent out a transmission. Xilari vessel, surrender. There is no escape. Carter grinned. Perfect. They think we're defenseless. Xena smirked. Then let's show them the truth. She turned to her weapons officer. Fire. The trap is sprung. The Vorathan came to life. Plasma cannons roared, unleashing a devastating barrage. The enemy ships, caught off guard, scrambled to react. One ship took a direct hit to its engines. It exploded instantly. The others scattered, trying to reposition, but Carter was already moving. He launched the Thunderstrike from the hangar, diving straight into the enemy fleet. All right, boys, he muttered. Let's dance. His fighter weaved between laser fire, dodging with impossible precision. He locked onto a target, fired, and watched as the enemy ship erupted into flames. The Xilari crew, watching from the bridge, marveled at his skill. He is unbelievable, Cyric whispered. Xena's eyes remained locked on the battle. No, she corrected. He is human. A desperate counterattack. The remaining enemy ships regrouped, focusing all their fire on Carter. Lasers crisscrossed the void, cutting off his escape routes. Getting serious now, Carter muttered. But he wasn't worried. He was having fun. He spun his ship, barrel rolling between the blasts. His instincts took over, his hands moving with practiced ease. Then, an enemy fighter locked onto him. Alarms blared inside his cockpit. Carter gritted his teeth. All right, let's see if you can keep up. He pushed his engines to the limit, dipping into the debris field. Enemy fire barely missed him, bouncing off shattered metal. The enemy ship followed. Carter smirked. Big mistake. He suddenly slammed his brakes, flipping his fighter 180 degrees. The enemy pilot, caught off guard, flew straight into Carter's crosshairs. Carter fired. Boom. Another one down. Victory, for now. The last enemy ship, realizing it was outmatched, flooded into hyperspace. Carter exhaled. Guess they finally got the message. On the Vorathan, cheers erupted. For the first time, they had won, not by running, but by fighting. Xena turned to Carter. You changed us today. Carter chuckled. Yeah, well, you're just getting started. But even as they celebrated, Carter knew the fight was far from over. The enemy wasn't gone. They were just getting ready. And next time, they wouldn't come with 5 ships. They'd bring an entire fleet. Carter clenched his fists. Earth had to be warned. Before it was too late, the battle was over. The Xilari had won, for now. But Jack Carter knew this was only the beginning. Inside the Vorathan's bridge, the crew was still recovering from the battle. Some were tending to minor injuries, while others were working on the final repairs. The air was filled with a sense of relief, but also a deep growing concern. The enemy had retreated, but not because they were defeated. They were preparing for something bigger. Carter stood in front of the main screen, arms crossed, watching the empty space where the last enemy ship had disappeared into hyperspace. Xena Vash walked up beside him. You are thinking about Earth, she said. Carter sighed. Yeah, if they really see my planet as a threat now, they won't just send a small fleet next time. Xena nodded. Then we must warn your people. Carter smirked. Now you're thinking like a human. A race against time. The Xilari officers gathered in the war room. The holographic map displayed a series of routes through space. Voralthak pointed to a section glowing in red. This is the fastest route to Earth, but it is risky. Carter raised an eyebrow. How risky? Voralthak exhaled. Patrolled by enemy ships, if they spot us, we will not stand a chance. Xena turned to Carter. What would you do? Carter studied the map. We can't fight a full fleet. But we don't need to. He traced a different path with his finger. This route takes longer, but we can stay under the radar. If we move fast and keep our signal low, we might just make it without a fight. Sirik, the communication officer, looked skeptical. And if they find us? Carter grinned. Then we make them regret it. Xena smirked. Then it is decided. Set course for Earth. The Vorathan jumped into hyperspace. An unexpected ambush. For hours, the journey was smooth. The ship moved quietly through space, avoiding major enemy patrols. But then, Captain, Sirik shouted, we are detecting movement ahead. On the screen, 3 enemy ships blocked their path. Carter clenched his fists. So much for sneaking through. Xena turned to Voralthak. Battle stations. The crew scrambled into position. Weapons powered up. Shields activated. A transmission came through. The enemy captain appeared. Tall, armored, and furious. You cannot escape, the alien said. You will be destroyed. Carter smirked. I've heard that before. Then, without warning, the enemy opened fire. The last Scifi ship shook violently as lasers slammed into the shields. The crew held on as alarms blared. Shields at 40%. Sirik shouted. Carter wasted no time. All right, Xena, we need to break through. Xena nodded. Target their lead ship. Fire everything. The Vorathan's cannons roared, striking the enemy's flagship. The ship shuddered, its hull cracking under the force. Carter launched his thunderstrike from the hangar. Distract them while we charge the warp drive. Xena ordered. Carter dove straight into battle. Enemy ships chased him, firing relentlessly. But he was too fast, too unpredictable. 1 down, 2 down. But the last enemy ship locked onto the Vorathan. Xena's eyes widened. Brace for impact. Carter saw the danger and acted instantly. He spun his fighter around, pushing his engines to the max. Come on, come on. With perfect precision, he fired at the enemy's engines just before it could fire on the Vorathan. Boom. The enemy ship exploded, missing the auxiliary ship by inches. Carter laughed. That was close. Xena's voice came through the comms. We are ready. Jumping to hyperspace now. Carter raced back to the hangar, docking just in time. And in the next second, they vanished into hyperspace. The arrival. After a long, intense journey, the Vorathan finally arrived at Earth's orbit. Carter exhaled in relief. Home sweet home. Xena gazed at the blue planet. It is beautiful. But there was no time to admire the view. They had a mission. Carter opened a channel to Earth's military command. This is Jack Carter, calling from the auxiliary vessel Vorathan, he said. We need to talk. The response was immediate. Carter, we thought you were dead. Not yet, Carter smirked. But listen closely. We have a problem. A moment of silence. Then, come to the base immediately. We need to hear everything. Carter turned to Xena. Time to meet my people. She nodded. And time to prepare for war. A new alliance. As the Vorathan descended toward Earth, Carter knew this was just the beginning. The enemy was coming. The war was far from over. But now, humanity wasn't alone. They had allies. And together, they were going to fight back.